Thank you, Warren, for joining Perth Dialogues
My
and
pleasure.
Indo-Oz, and welcome to Perth.
Perth's a beautiful city, but this is pretty amazing, this building, yeah.
Yeah. And you are on this campaign for no to the voice vote. As a migrant, my first question is, and my first priority is that when I come here, I settle myself, settle my family, have a job, have a something. My priority is very localized.
Yes.
On the other hand, we are talking about a voice which is at federal government, $35 billion of funding annually.
Yes.
It's too big a difference. Why should I even be bothered? Will my vote matter?
Your vote will matter. Every vote matters in a democracy, and especially a liberal democracy like Australia. It is so important for people to get enrolled and to vote so you have your say. And because this is a referendum, it's different than a normal federal election. So in this case, it's, you get two bites of the cherry in a sense. So they do it as the majority of all Australia. They count all the numbers up, states and territories, and you've got to get that one up. And then the second part of it, you have to have a majority of states. So you've got to have at least 4 states to get up. So Western Australia plays a vital role in that, and you've got Queensland and all the other states do. So that's why it's so important for people to do that vote, because they have that 2 bites.
On the voice, the government and the Yes campaign both say that we should be working towards the voice and we should vote yes so that the First Nation people get more rights, more power to decide their own destiny. Why should we bring politics into this discussion?
Well, the issue that, this is the funny thing, because since 1901, when the Federation was first set up, Commonwealth of Australia, we've been working towards, more rights and equality. So in 1938, there was a big protest in Sydney from Aboriginal people. We were citizens of this country, but we're second-class citizens, because in those days the federal government couldn't make laws about Aboriginals. It was the states that did. And depending on what state you were in, you had voting rights or you didn't have voting rights. You had access to things and that. And then we had this 67 referendum, which was to get rid of all those discriminatory laws. So we got getting race out of the Constitution, getting the end of segregation, the end of the state government's laws that were discriminatory. So within 4 or 5 years, all these laws were gone. I was born under the discriminatory laws in New South Wales, which was under, they called it the Aboriginal Protections Act. Now, it started out with good intentions to look after Aboriginal people, but then it turned in, as my mum used to say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah. And we become second-class citizens in that, so that they tried to restrict our integration into the rest of the Australian society. And so we got rid of all that, and we're moving on this journey of equality, end of segregation, opportunities that happen by coming and living in this country, like yourselves. You come here as migrants, you want to have a good life, you want to have treated the same as everyone else, and you wanted a better life for your children and your grandchildren and stuff like that. So that's what we wanted too. So that's the journey we've been moving towards, and that's why, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. There are certain sections of our community who have problems. So you're looking at, what you saw in Alice Springs recently, and Laverton and other places around the country. So we should be focusing on them to help them get to school, to help them get into jobs and businesses and stuff like that, rather than treating all Aboriginals as the same. So like myself, I had good parents and that, and I've got a good life. They taught us work ethics, they taught us about education is key in that. And so this voice treats all Aboriginals the same, they're rich or poor, and it is setting up a huge bureaucracy. And my thing is, if bureaucracy is the answer, then you ask the wrong question. All we've got to do is do 4 things. Accountability, so all these people, like you mentioned, $30 billion, we should be saying, well, you're getting $30 billion. What's the result? Have you got kids at schools? Have you got life expectancy going up? Healthy people? Have you got investments in business and jobs in communities? And that's what we've got to do. We've got to really focus on that, because I reckon just doing that will fix a lot of things. And then the other ones, of course, is education. Education is the key for a better life and shifting out of poverty. So that's massively important. It's not rocket science to work that out.
That's right.
And of course, you need economic participation. So while the kids are going to school, the parents, we need to get them into jobs and get investments into their community and get them the opportunity to run businesses and that. And then the final one, which is going to be really tough to do, is about the social problems in those communities. And we saw that recently. And to do that, you can spend as much money as you like, but unless those people in that community want to change and want to improve their lives, then you're wasting your time. So that's going to be a bit of a struggle for us.
Related to that question, I was reading about voice, and I know that the Harvard government removed the barriers to become be counted and start voting. The Liberal Neville Bonner was the first parliamentarian.
Yeah, first Aboriginal parliamentarian. Within 4 years of us getting, 1962 we got full voting rights, and within 4 years of that we got Neville Bonner into Parliament.
And now we have got 11 senators or parliamentarians
Yeah.
from Aboriginal heritage and background. We still have this gap, long gap. Have the parliamentarians failed, and that's why we need the voice?
No, the parliamentarians have failed and the bureaucracies have failed. They get very good reports from closing the gap, and they get very good reports from the Productivity Commission, but there's not much action in it. In fact, only 2 weeks ago, the Productivity Commission said every dollar that's spent on Aboriginal affairs, only 37 cents get on the ground. So all the money's swallowed up by the bureaucrats and the administration, rather than actually getting out there and working with them. When I was the chairman of the Prime Minister's Indigenous Advisory Council, we brought in we set up a strategy called the Indigenous Business Economy Strategy. Public servants like big names. And so what we did was we said government contracts, 3%, because that's the Aboriginal population, need to go to Aboriginal businesses on merit, of course. So if you're just selling stationery to the government, then it's got to turn up on Monday. The pens have got to work. Everything's got to be there. And from that, we started out in the 1st of July 2015. It was $6.2 million of contracts going to Aboriginal. It's worth $8.7 billion today. It's created 45,000 jobs. And it's 37% of those 45,000 jobs are in remote and regional Australia. This is the way forward. Just having a committee sitting in Canberra, which we've been doing for the last 50 years, doesn't make a difference. It's about actually getting projects going forward which creates jobs, gets kids into school and that. So I work also on an education program, and we've got 1,500 kids since 2008 to complete high school and to complete university undergraduates and postgraduate studies. And so and we have a 98% success rate, which is better than the national average. National average is probably about 89%. So we even got better results. We have doctors and lawyers and engineers and accountants and that. That's the way forward. It's not about a committee. It's actually doing action, which is targeted at outcomes and accountability. So we're actually doing the job and spending the money efficiently. We'll get those jobs, and it is about those important things.
So apart from that, are there any other reasons why I should change my vote from yes to no?
Besides listening to a very charming, good-looking Aboriginal person, there's a lot of reasons to do that, because it's a structural issue. Like I was talking about, that a dollar spent and only 37 cents gets out there. You sort of sitting there going, if I did that in my business, I'd go bankrupt. you know. If my staff were doing that, I'd have a cup of tea with them and have a very serious talk about fixing it, because it's got to be focused on outcomes. Now, the government, for instance, is saying, well, you know, the voice will fix everything. And so my question is, where's the evidence to say that? And they said, just trust the voice, trust the voice. And they said, well, we want to see what it looks like. What's it going to look like? And they say, oh, don't worry about that. Wait till after you vote for it. And I'm saying, what? We're going to put it in the Constitution. And that means if it doesn't work, we're stuck with it. We can't get rid of it. And so, you know, people in Western Australia here were complaining about the Aboriginal Heritage Act. Because it was legislation, they were able to withdraw it, and now they're working on it to make it better. When you got it in the Constitution, you can't do that, because it's very hard to get it out of the Constitution if it's not working.
Right. So I would...
I don't mind them putting it up as legislation.
Sure.
But you know, so then we can fix it or pull it if it doesn't work. But once it's in the Constitution, we're stuck with it.
So I have a last question. So, for example, in a hypothetical or 50-50 chances, the no case wins.
Yeah.
And if you were the Prime Minister, how would you...
Oh, it'd be a better country then. Everyone would be happy.
But what are the first things that you will start towards closing those gaps? First 3 or 4 things that you can...
Well, the first thing I do is in regard to looking at doing audits on why this $30 billion hasn't worked. And then we start looking about, okay, what are the outcomes we want? And so we say, for argument's sake, we want to say there's only 30% of Aboriginal kids going to school. How do we get to 70 or 80%? And so then you put a target in a time frame, and how much a budget, and then we check on them every now and again to make sure it's happening. So if it takes, say, for argument's sake, 4 years, in the end of 4 years, we want them to have 70 to 80% of Aboriginal kids at school. And if they're not doing it, then you're out of there, and we'll get someone to do it.
Good. Thank you for the conversation. It's a pleasure chatting to you.
Yes.
And best of luck for your campaign.
Okay, thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Thank
Good
you.
on
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you.